All right, wahoo, yippee! We're not talking about Star Wars, yippee. This is Mario, baby.
Yippee!
Now this is our officially. It's
Woohoo!
our first video game series review series
Mm.
on the channel.
This is our first series of video game series review series
Yeah,
on the Tarqaron series podcasts
because
network.
in the past we've done many movie review series. Now it's not going to be
Lots
as
of them.
nearly as frequent as those. You know, we do those week by week. With this, we're doing all the 3D Mario games. All right, but we're giving ourselves a month to play each of them when they come up. So starting with Mario 64, and we're going through all of them, and it's going to be fun. Though it's not going to be like perfect, you might have to skip a month here or there, but we're going to try to be as consistent as possible. In fact, we might be skipping the very next month, but then we'll get back to
Yeah,
it.
we might. We're pretty slammed in October, and we've got some
Because we like to do the horror stuff,
skips that we might have to do.
themes.
Yeah,
And Mario Sunshine doesn't really
Mario
thematically
Sunshine does
work.
not really fit
Not
that.
quite,
Yeah, not really.
but there's I don't think any of the 3D Marios really work. I was trying to think, is there anyone you could even stretch?
This one is probably the one I was probably stretched the most.
So dark.
No,
Disturbed.
like I just think of like Boo's Haunt, Boo's
Well, you could take any Mario game that's got booze in it.
big. Well, right, but I think like Big Boo's. So like, I think Big Boo's Haunt, Hazy Maze Cave, basically everything in the basement's kind of creepy in this game. So like everything with that, even Shifting Sandland's got some creepy elements to it. You know.
Yeah,
So-
I'll say the 3D Mario games I love. It might be one of my favorite video game series ever. Like specifically 3D Mario games.
Me too. Actually,
And
it's something I'm extremely nostalgic for.
After playing this one, or finishing this one for the first time, now I've beaten every 3D Mario game. You know,
Had you never
previously I'd
beaten this
never
one
beaten
before?
this game. Yeah.
I guess that's right. I guess we talked about that.
It's one I didn't grow up with. Actually, I think I still have the cartridge. Like I did get it when I was very young, but then I shoved a penny in that cartridge just for the heck of it, just to see what would happen.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Mario 64?
You won't believe
huh?
what happened next. I couldn't play it, so and then I didn't.
Wow, that's a shocker. That's a shocker right there.
And then I tried years ago. I've played a little bit, and then years later I played a little bit more, but I never really got past the first few worlds and never saw it through. I didn't 100% it or anything. I finished it. I tend to with a lot of 3D Mario games to go for 100%, but I'm not perfect. I haven't, even some ones later I haven't 100%ed, but anyway, Mario 64, it's going to be fun, but as always, we're going to start off with our gut check. Every review we do, we start with what's the score we're feeling going into the review, and then afterwards we can lock in our final score. All right?
All right.
Let's see. All right. What
All
we
right.
got? 3, 2, 1, flip. Whoa! It's a synergy
Hey, all right,
moment. Wow.
Woohoo!
It's an 8.
Pew, pew.
Well, it's not an 8 officially, but this is my gut.
We are feeling. Yeah, it's my gut too.
This is the hardest one.
This is a game
do,
that
I think.
This is extremely hard for me because I'm very nostalgic for this game. Like in my heart, this is a 10 out of 10 video game.
Yeah.
This is with like Ocarina of Time are like two of the games that defined my imagination as a child. I would say other Mario games did as well. Mario RPG did a significant amount as well. It was a very, very important game to me growing up. Mickey Mouse was, he was there. Mickey Mouse, I love Mickey Mouse.
You gotta give it up for Mickey Mouse at some point.
But you gotta give it up for Mickey Mouse. But Mario 64 like really captured the magic of 3D graphics for me. In terms of, I grew up when I was like 4, 5, 6, basically watching the Super Nintendo, playing the Super Nintendo. When I was allowed. It was crazy? I remember getting time, like when my mom would give me time to play, I was given 15 minutes to play. 15 minutes to play video games. at a time. There were some times where it's like, all right, you only got 15 minutes.
And how much in what span of time?
Like when I was little, like when I was like, I don't.
Like,
it wasn't that every
no,
time.
like every
you know,
day
I would get.
you get 15 minutes. Is what you're telling me?
I don't remember. I don't remember the exact like metric, but I think it was like on some days I would only get like 15 minutes. I think like on a basic summer day I would only get maybe like 15 minutes. I was allowed. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if that was like consistent or not, but I do remember there was like a specific time I remember trying to stretch it out. I was playing Mario 1. I remember like on the Mario All-Stars collection on the Super Nintendo. I remember like getting really frustrated because I was like, I'm trying to beat this one level. Like, hey, this is not 15 minutes. Like, that's not enough time. I remember thinking that when I was little.
Right.
I feel
one
like I was
level.
probably given more time than that, but probably later on in life. But I do remember that being a thing. So, but in any case, yeah, Mario 64 is like a 10 out of 10 game in my heart. But like looking back on it now, I think it still does some things extremely well, which is like very impressive. There are technical things that obviously hold it back, and I think that's worth delving into, which we will. You know, it's a game that's aged pretty well, given that it's a 3D platform, a very early 3D platformer, but there's still jank there, and you know, it's a product of the time, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast at this point. So there are better games than it that have come out since. It's not a perfect game, and there are some issues that I have with it still. But I also want to go on record and say this is the first time I corrected a childhood wrong. I got 120 stars in this game just recently, and I was extremely happy to have done that.
But I also corrected a childhood wrong in beating the game.
You actually beating
and
it
being
and
able to
beating the
play
game,
it.
and there you go. Yeah, well,
Not
there
on
you
the
go.
N64, but I played it.
Yeah, I played it. So I tried. I popped in the Mario 3D All Stars version of it, and this is extremely stupid and petty, but it's a thing that bothers me. And the thing that bothered me was the smoothed out text. I didn't like it. I saw the text smoothed out, and I was like, I can't do this. And that's such a little nothing thing. Like that's probably the thing that doesn't bother people other than me, but
Right.
it bothered me, and I was like, no, I'm gonna play I'm gonna pop in the N64 online version to see if it's just a ROM of the original game. It's not the Shindo version, which I think is what the 3D All Stars version is, which is like a later version of the game that they released that like gets rid of some of the glitches. I don't know what else really it does. Other than that,
It doesn't do jack.
I know it doesn't do
the
jack.
least amount of
I know there are
effort
things in the
possible.
I know there's some things in the speed run. Well, it came out in '97, so I was like, I know there are things in the speed run that you can't do on the Shindo version. So like the long jump, the backwards long jump up the staircase, you can't do that glitch in that version of the game. So
Okay.
But in any case, yeah. So we'll get into it, but yeah, this is just an extremely important game to me, childhood wise, and I loved getting to play it with an N64 controller on the Switch. I just think that's really cool and nice that they have that. They have a controller that like that. Yeah, you have to have. I don't know if you have the expansion pack online or whatever.
I don't. Yeah.
They only offer the N64 controller, at least directly from Nintendo. They only offer that USB N64 controller through if you have the expansion packs, which it seems a little silly to me, but I guess there's what's the point in doing that if you're what games are you gonna play
on the Switch
what games are you gonna play with a jank N64 controller anyways? But man, I love using that thing.
Yeah,
I love that thing. It's so
I
stupid.
Love
it's
that
such a dumb controller, and I love
dumb
it.
Fuck controller,
It's wild. It's a silly controller, but
So the Switch is so stupid. How you can go and like, if you go on your profile and see what you're playing, it's just like Nintendo 64 online, Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like it looks so ugly. Like you you couldn't have put something in there where you could see the actual game they're playing or something. Give us
Yeah.
something. It's
Switch
awful.
2, maybe Switch 2 they'll actually be like, oh, he's playing Nintendo 64 online, but he's playing Star Fox 64 or something in
Hopefully
there.
they
Yeah.
just give us something
I don't
better.
know why they didn't do it.
I miss the virtual console, baby. I do. I like just having it. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I think there's strengths and weaknesses to both, I think. But
Okay, so I'm saying Mario 64 is going to be the most challenging, I think, to review in terms of it's definitely aged. It's aged well, but it's aged the most easily out of any Mario game. Like I think you can look at any other 3D Mario game and just like judge it on its own merits. This is one where you kind of, I think it's fair to give it some grace. Obviously because it's like it created a whole genre practically, and it was like the first of its kind. First of all these, and yeah, it does some things really well. And so it's like it's one of those things where you say it could be a 10 out of 10 in your heart, and I wouldn't be like that's wrong. It's hard to say because it's like technically, if you play it now, there's some it's just hard to say that when the camera is kind of
the
fucked up.
The camera's rough. And here's the thing: I actually learned. I think I realized when most recently the most recent Games Done Quick, Summer Games Done Quick, there was a runner, I believe it was Summer. There was a runner that did a blindfolded Mario 64 speedrun. And for a lot of the tricks, they have to manipulate the camera. Basically in order for you to line up certain tricks, because if you're doing a blindfold, you have to know, basically kind of visualize where you are on the stage kind of in your mind. It's insane. I would highly recommend somebody go watch a blindfolded speedrun of Mario 64. It's insane. It's just wild. But I learned from that even though he's not watching the game, I learned that actually utilizing the other Lakitu functions, like the Mario cam as well as the fixed cam, actually can be really useful for lining up platforms. Right. Because if you're just using Lakitu cam, it sometimes just refuses to listen to you.
Yeah.
It's just you'll try to move it and it'll be like, no, I'm going back here. No, I'm going back here. No, I'm going back here. And it's because it's an interesting way to depict it, but it's that they decided to do this because they made the camera a physical manifestation in the world through the Lakitu, because I think that's literally what they had to do. I think in terms of a programming difficulty, they have to make the camera a physical object in the world to a degree. So it's almost like the camera has to fight with the invisible walls at the same point. So yeah. It's very frustrating. It can be very frustrating, but I found using Mario Cam and using the zoom out on Mario Cam, so keeping the camera always behind him, can actually be extremely useful in some situations when the other camera just refuses to listen to you.
Yeah, I just find it difficult, especially as someone who didn't feel the impact at the time of this game, to now review it after the fact. Having played it years later, obviously it's a lot different than playing it when it came out.
Yeah, I was 6 when this game came out, right? So we didn't get an N64 till 97, 98, so I didn't even play it until I was 8 or 9 maybe. But even still, it was a defining game of my childhood. We rented an N64, and I think we may have rented Mario 64 at one point. So, yeah.
But it's
it's hard. It is hard, yeah.
Having experienced all of the 3D Marios to come, and obviously every other platformer that was basically inspired by this game, it's there's these worlds. If you play these worlds, they leave a lot to be desired. It's they're not. It's a lot. A lot simpler in some ways. So it's tough. It's tough to judge and really give a final score. So we'll figure it out. But I will say the thing that still stands out to me immediately is just what it does so well are the movement options. That even platformers today and platformers a couple years after this one. They don't have the amount of movement options like the backflip, the long jump, like the triple jump, wall jumps, the sideways jump. Like there's so many different fun ways, which is a large part of why it's like such a successful speedrun game, because of all these different things that you can combine in fun ways.
It's so moving around the world is just fun. And when you can make that enjoyable, you're golden. You have a design framework to make an entire. You can do whatever you want after that. Like if you can make movement, just running around an empty world, fun. And the castle is by no means empty, but you can make just running around in the castle and jumping around and doing fun stuff, just because you feel like it. When you can make that fun, you've got a pretty. You've got an amazing framework to make an amazing game. And I think that I agree. I think that's a testament to like why the game still continues to captivate people and still continues to work. And I think it's definitely like more towards like my generation. Our generation, I would say, is probably a little bit more captivated by. I don't know how much like Z and Alpha are really into Mario 64. I couldn't say, but I think that does speak to how like the game can still be fun. Like we don't have to make so many exceptions in our minds. Like obviously there's some that we can look past because there's a degree of growing up with it in my case, or already having played it and being kind of used to the culture of retro games on your case. But yeah, I think I totally agree. I think the movement really does sell the fun of the game right off the bat.
Right, but playing it as someone who's not a speedrunner and who doesn't know the game by heart and stuff, that really highlights the flaws as well, because it's like you feel how bad that camera is, because like you don't perfectly know where everything is. Like speedrunners, like they know exactly. You don't even have to see it. They know where everything is and where to jump. So it's like I'm trying to figure stuff out, even being so familiar with a lot of it just from seeing so many people play this game over the years. It's like still new to me in some ways, and some of the worlds more than others. But it's like you feel it. You feel how much it's aged in that way. Whereas like the speedrunning community, you don't feel it because they're just like they've perfected it. It's like you can see all the pros highlighted.
It's one of the most speedrun games on speedrun.com. Like I think it may have the most submissions of any game.
It's gotta be number one.
Yeah. I might be wrong on that, but it's up there. It's like Super Metroid. They're extremely popular speedrun games. So yeah, for sure.
So it's like my problem with this game is obviously the things that have aged like that, and the worlds like aren't exactly the most interesting to me. Like none stand out like some do in later 3D Mario games, and they're not.
Well, let's break that down. So I'm curious because I did the full 120 star run. So I experienced most of pretty much all there is to the game.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to like, do you remember how many stars you ended with?
I did 70, so I beat it.
You just did a straight 70. Okay. Did you play? Did you at least try every world?
I think so. I think I tried to make sure that I at least hit all of them, that I wasn't missing any. There were definitely some where I didn't do much, where I was like... Yeah.
I would say the strongest worlds, it's funny because there's a pattern. As I'm playing through, there's a definite pattern in terms of like what your first star is going to be. In a lot of the worlds, not every world, but in a lot of them. Some of it is literally just get to the top of the stage. See everything there is to see in this world.
Right.
So just get to the top, and then all the other stars kind of fall in line with that, like on offshoots, different like small little paths. So some of them like, we'll collect red coins. You've seen red coins around the world as you've been walking around here, as you went up to the first star. So when I was playing it, I was trying. I didn't always do this because I mean I know this game so well. Like it's hard not to. It's hard to just do it all in order.
Right.
But what I started off trying to do was doing each star in order, in the order that the game presents them to you, and trying to do this where I'd collect the 100 coin star either during the red coin hunt or during some other like thing that just generally generated or gave the ability to get a lot of coins very easily. I kind of broke that probably like halfway through. I was like, yeah, I don't have to do that. I can I can run around and do whatever. But a major theme of a lot of them is just get to the top of the world. And funnily enough, I think those are the worlds that work the best. I think everything that follows that formula, I think all of those worlds are some of the best in the game. Bob on Battlefield, Womp's Fortress, Cool Mountain actually inverts this because you go down the mountain. You start at the top and you go down, and I think that's a fun twist. But then you have Tall Mountain, I think is what it is. That one is a lot of fun. Tiny Huge Island. I'm trying to think of if there's any other, but like a lot of them are like, let's get to the top of the structure. There you go.
Yeah.
TikTok Clock. TikTok Clock sucks, but it's the same sort of formula in all of them.
I kind of like TikTok Clock. It's like, to get all those stars is annoying, but I like some of it. You know,
I like TikTok Clock's concept. Right, you enter the world at a different time.
In speed,
you're literally in a clock, and you enter it in like the speed depends on when you enter it. I think that's fun. And I will say TikTok Clock is better than Rainbow Ride. Rainbow Ride, I understand its purpose. It's testing you. It's saying, hey, you've played through this whole game, and you know all the movements, and we're not going to handhold you at all anymore. You have to make sure that you're really precise with your jumps, and you got to make sure you know all the movement. The problem with Rainbow Ride is you have to wait all the damn time in that stupid world. And it's so boring. It's actually boring. It's shocking because the world is boring until some BS completely knocks you off, and then you have to do it all over again. You have to wait around for the damn carpet to bring you back up again. It sucks. It's a terrible world.
I like Rainbow Ride.
I do not like it at all. There's parts of it that I like. I like the fun, the red coin thing, and there's fun. I actually really like the section behind where you start. There's that whole section. There's they have 2 stars in that area. There's one that you have to just like do the swings.
Yeah.
You have to use like the swings to do that. I like that. That's fun. And then the inverting the triangles. You have to like hop on there and you have to get up there. That's like fun little simple challenges. But then you have to wait around for the damn magic carpets so many times. It sucks. I liked
going all the way up, though. It was like it's very stressful. It's like don't fuck up now. I got to start over the whole thing. Yeah.
It's fun. I think it's fun. Like the world itself is interesting, right? They built these cool like locations in the world. Like, oh, well, it'll be fun. It's a magic boat, like it's Rainbow Ride. So it's like, oh, okay, you're going up. It's like a ride. You'll take the magic carpet. You go up to the boat that's flying in the sky. It's like, oh, it's like a theme park ride. And like the conceit of it is fun, but it's just so boring until. It's stressful and boring at the same time. It's sort of this weird. Usually, you have to wait around for so long, and then it never feels it. It very rarely feels like it's your fault that you fell off. If you fall off,
I just like kind of levels that have good like challenging platforming. I like that, and this one felt like challenging, and then it's rewarding when you get through it.
I think I would agree that TikTok Clock is better at doing that, because that's also a very hard level in terms of like there's no floor. You have to kind of navigate the whole. I think the
And
platforming in that is a lot more interesting.
yeah.
Especially because you can kind of determine the challenge in a weird way, because stopping the clock to some degree eliminates challenge, but it actually makes it so that you have to make more precise jumps in a weird way that's a little less forgiving, because you have to make sure that like you do a U-turn, like a sideways jump and then wall kick, and then you have to grab onto this one thing that's out of reach unless you do that. So it's more deterministic, but if you know the patterns really well, you can do it when you're able to do it when the clock is even going really quickly.
I found it very hard when I was trying to think going into this. Like, let me think. What are my favorite worlds? What's my favorite world? And I really could not. I was struggling. It's like I can't think of like what is my favorite. Though I do think you're generally right. The ones where you're working your way up, they're generally the better levels.
I think Womp's Fortress is great. I think Womp's Fortress.
So
I think Bomb Battlefield is one of, I would say, is probably one of the. I feel like Womp's Fortress was I feel like I remember hearing about this one time. I think Womp's Fortress was designed first, like as a concept of a first idea for a stage. Mm-hmm. But I think Bomb Battlefield is one of the best introductory stages, especially in an early platformer like this, because you can't fall off the edge, and they built it in a way that really just funnels you up to the top. The whole world is like open up. It's not huge by today's standards, obviously. It's pretty small, but you have to you work your way up. There's multiple little paths you can take, and either go up the long hill if you're really persistent, or you can take a little more obstacle course way to get up around, and there's little shortcuts you can take and such, but all funnels you up there. And then the first star in the whole game, the King Bob-omb can't kill you, or he can't hurt you. He just throws you off.
He can't hurt you.
And
he can't hurt you.
He can't hurt you. He can't hear you. It's okay. But the Womp King can kill you. He'll crush you if you're, just learning the game. So, I think Bob-omb Battlefield does a good job teaching mechanics, while Womp's Fortress puts it in a more this is what you're actually going to be probably dealing with more in this game. There's a little bit more treacherous jumping. Enemies are going to be able to hurt you a little bit more easily. You're gonna have to just figure out how to navigate the world and interact with it in different ways. And yeah, I think that's a standout for me personally. I think Womp's Fortress is great.
Mm-hmm. I think Womp's Fortress is where I would lean. I do fuck with Lethal Lava Land though.
Lethal Lava Land is
really
very challenging, and it is a satisfying challenge, I think.
I just love it's just it's simple.
Too.
It's like you just jump where you need to go. It's not like you have to mess with all this stuff.
Unless you get the shell.
Yeah.
In stars 5 and 6, you get a shell access to a shell where you can kind of go around the whole stage that way. You just got to make sure not to run into anything.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like I just find my way in ways they don't anticipate you getting to certain stars. This is an interesting part of this game. You can kind of just fuck your way, fuck around enough and just find your way into the stars. That's kind of fun. It's like a free form. The idea that you can do it in any order was also cool, and especially at the time when everybody's so used to just levels, you this level, this level, this level, and it's you technically have that, but you can go into this world and you can do it in any order depending on what is unlocked and whatnot.
Right. Well, that was the thing. In Lethal Lava Land, for example, I had the wing cap already, so I just used the wing cap, and instead of doing the whole log puzzle where you have to wait for the platform to move around, I just got the wing cap and I just flew over there and got the star. Because I was I don't want to deal with any of that crap. I know I can do that at a later level.
Right. I think I did the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
it just fucks up the whole idea. What the name of this star doesn't mean anything to me. I just went over and grabbed it.
It's rolling the log or whatever, or something like that. It's just nah, I don't want to deal with any of that crap. I'm just gonna, yeah. Well, that's that. Yeah, I agree. I think it's fun how they didn't like force you into having to do it a certain way. There were suggestions and there was ways that you could, but they gave you the ability to have so many different options at your disposal that you could kind of play the game in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's pretty cool that they did that.
And I know it can be issues. Some people have issues with like. I remember hearing Rusty talk about this recently, where he didn't like the fact on Mario 64 you get a star, it throws you out of the level. You know, if you could just get a star and keep getting other stars, like some people would like that more. And I do get that to some extent. And when I'm like dying, and then I get kicked out, it gets annoying. You just keep getting kicked out, and you have to find your way all the way back to where it is. Like things like that are annoying. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's an element of I think there is an element of frustration there. I'm interesting. I find that interesting because like for me, I don't. That's happened to me a few times where even when I was playing it again recently, where I die, and then I like try it again a couple of times. I die a couple more times. But I found what I liked about it is the fact that it gave me more of a reason to just like, oh, maybe I'll set this down for now. I'm gonna go do another. I'll go play around in another world for a little bit. Like I'll set this down. I'm gonna go play. Jump around the castle and do a couple other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is like that's one of the reasons why I've never really had that big of a problem with it. I can understand. I can kind of understand it from especially like Banjo-Kazooie standpoint, where Banjo-Kazooie definitely is like the blueprint for. I'm just gonna collect something and I'm gonna keep going, and we'll keep doing it. But I might be mistaken, but I think there are more jiggies per level than just 6. So you could already get more. There's already more collectibles in general in that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also interesting because Mario 64 does have that in a very limited degree. If you are able to collect 100 coins and you pick up the star that's related to that, game doesn't kick you out. You're able to still go and grab a star and continue on. So it is interesting that like offhandedly, I think it was maybe it was just like a technical limitation, but it was a deliberate decision. And I feel like some of that decision was score based. So I don't know if you know this, on the main menu, you can actually check your score. And I think Nintendo is sort of trying to harken back a little bit to the old score chasing roots of the original Mario and basically every Mario that has had a score ever since, where every star is tracked and you can determine the amount of coins that you collected in each star. And I think there's an element of that that's retained, and that might be the reason why they thought, well, the challenge then is like, how many coins can you collect when you're getting this particular star? So I think there's an element of like, just like coin chasing, or like in terms of like maybe beating your own score in these kind of worlds. And I think some of that might be a leftover from that sort of mentality.
For sure. And that's why I give it some grace for that, because obviously it's the first of its kind.
Yeah.
So I'm always willing to give grace on that, and especially since it does
Mm-hmm.
have that freedom where you can just go around and go to other worlds. That's really important to this game. It's like the game would be a lot not nearly as strong if you're just stuck in this world. Like you're stuck in Bob-omb's Battlefield till you finish that, and then you're stuck in this one. That it would lose a lot of, I think, the heart that it has. And that's kind of a staple in a lot of 3D Mario games, is that a little bit of freedom at least to go around different levels if you want, for the most part. So I think that's cool.
Well, I want to shout out also Jolly Roger Bay and Dire Dire Docks for having some of the best video game music ever composed.
The music in general is like, wow, it's timeless.
Yeah,
and it's one of the best.
Koji Kondo was just vibing, man. Like he was really having a great time with the new technology, the new sound fonts that he had access to. Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's like hard to talk about the music almost without getting kind of emotional, just because it really does bring you back to that period of time when you're a little kid. It's the Dire Dire Docks is just like such a there's like a time capsule of that idea, of that like identity of 90s gaming is like really, I don't know, it's like haunting in a way. I think I you know that was a word that that Johnny used in a recent video about some music. I think he's talking about like Dragon Quest music in that way. And that's kind of how I feel about like that particular music is just like, but it's like not like a bad haunting. It's that has like a negative connotation to it. I realize, but it's really positive nostalgia, wistful in a way. So there is some sadness with it because I think nostalgia is not necessarily a positive emotion. It can actually have some negative connotations to it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that music is just so ingrained. I think, and I think that's not, and I'm not alone in that. I know that it's very beloved by
Mm-hmm.
people my age.
It transcends the medium, right?
So
It's
definitely,
and it's like even
yeah,
yeah, me playing it was not necessarily the most nostalgia for it. It's like it's you can tell it's like an all-star soundtrack. You know, there's a reason I
yeah,
like know all the music like by heart without even fully playing through the game. But it's like for what it is, it's just like a fun 3D platformer. You don't have to think too much about it. Like the music seems like way above that, right?
yeah.
It's like a lot.
Well, one of the things that makes Dire Dire Doc special, and it's actually something the cave music does really well too, like the Hazy Maze Cave and
Mm-hmm.
other like cave type music does really well, is that it's utilizing sequenced music. And it was this technique that you're able to do with higher quality sound fonts. It may have been used earlier. I don't know the entire history of it, but basically, the game is playing multiple tracks at the same time in the background. Um, but uh, but when you're encountering or entering a different area, that's when the music can evolve and change. So if you jump in the water in Dire Dire Docks, or I should say, even because you're in the water at the beginning, you jump in the water in Jolly Roger Bay, the music will add a new layer. There's going to be a new like harmonization to the music, and then when you go down into the cave at the bottom of Jolly Roger Bay, you come up into the cave. Then there's like an action beat to it, so it adds another layer to it
Right.
where there's now like percussion, and it's so good. It's just so well crafted. Like the idea to have that idea where it's like, well, we're entering this new area. Let's like change the music around, make it more interesting. And I feel like that concept was definitely used in other video games, particularly like action games and stuff. But I don't know the whole history on it, but it was able to be used in such a more dynamic and interesting way because you can add or remove layers as needed, right? So it's like you enter the water, you enter this cave area, you come back out of it, you can remove that layer now that you've come out of that area. You can just go back to the normal sort of harmonization.
Mm-hmm.
And Hazy Maze Cave does that as you go down deeper into the cavern. You're encountering Dory, I think is the monster's name in this game. You go down there and it's got this sort of like mysterious uh, sort of layer to it. Or you're down in like the smoke caverns, the poisonous gas. It's got like it's got that same sort of layer. But if you're just jumping around and doing other stuff, in the main sort of levels of it, it just is like the normal. It's a normal funkalicious version of the underground theme from Mario One.
Right.
Yeah, the music is like they they really they really did think about that sort of thing. There was a lot of effort put into that, and it's, I mean, it goes without saying, video game composers they're composers, they're musicians, so musicians are going to put effort into the stuff that they're doing, but it's fun to see them already trying techniques and using techniques like that extremely well at such an early stage, because they use that through the 64. They use that since they use it today. They use it all the time still.
Right.
So yeah, I love stuff like that.
The thing with Mario 64 is this weird dichotomy of It's simultaneously way ahead of its time, but extremely dated at the same time. It's like it's got so many
I know.
things that are ahead of its
It's
time, but
weird.
also could not exist in this form at any other time of gaming, because it's like
No,
it had to be right now when 3D gaming was brand new and 3D platformers did not exist. Like this was a whole new world. So that's why you have the jagged edges, like the literal jagged
right.
edges of the world and how it looks, but also
Yeah.
how it plays. It's not, you know, up to the quality we expect now. But then you have the
But it's,
movement that's crazy. You have the music that's next level, and then
mm.
so many inventive and revolutionized things in here. So
But it's fun too because it's like its contemporaries learned very quickly, like how to iterate and improve on it. Even you
yeah,
see games like Banjo Kazooie, right? Also a beloved game. I've never beaten Banjo Kazooie. That's my gaming shame. We never owned it as a kid, and I think I played it on an emulator in college, but I never beat it.
I've never beaten it either.
Um, yeah,
The Banjo
and
series is coming next.
but Banjo series. There's only two games. We don't talk about the other
It's
ones.
just three
The
games, three game the trilogy.
there's only two. There's only two. Yeah, the trilogy, nuts and bolts. Yeah, the trilogy, the Banjo trilogy. Um, yeah, the what was I saying? Well, but you see other like 3D platformers as well, like Spyro, for example. It came out a few years after this, where that's doing new and interesting things, but still applying the same sort of collectathon. Got to pick up, got to find the multiple special things in each world, while also collecting a bunch of gems and stuff that adding up. So, yeah. So it definitely paving the way, but it is interesting because its contemporaries do learn from its mistakes at the same time. They do things to mitigate problems with the camera, and they do things to mitigate. Like Crash is probably a terrible example because it's a different kind of 3D platformer.
Right.
But Crash learned from it by having a fixed camera. Right? It's like moving around a 3D space is weird and jank, and also the PlayStation doesn't exactly have analog control. So we're gonna force you to. This camera's gonna be there. We'll just direct you where to go by moving the camera around. Just like we've always done it. But now we're gonna do it in 3 dimensions. So,
Right.
so yeah, definitely, it is an interesting dichotomy, especially like looking now from a modern lens, right? Like,
Yeah, that's why this is so hard to actually review and to put a score on, because, like I said, I firmly believe that every 3D Mario after this, you could just judge it for what it is. And we're not going to say like, oh, these things age so poorly that like they wouldn't do them nowadays. You can say things are. We're going to have our criticisms, but it's not going to be because it was at a time where they didn't know what they were doing yet.
Right, because it is interesting because like even with the next entry, I think that one's easier, even though it's still like a 20-year-old game, 22-year-old game. Mm-hmm. It's still sort of easier to critique in its own way because it wasn't as cutting edge anymore, right? They'd learned the ropes. There have been a lot of 3D platformers that came out during the N64, PlayStation 1 era. And when you're moving into a higher definition console, you have a lot of contemporaries that have done things to iterate on, improve, change, do new things with the formula that, like, when Mario Sunshine comes out, you've had a lot of this experience. You should be able to figure out how to solve XYZ problems with what you had in this other game. So it's definitely going to be easier to judge, I think, on more modern merits.
And it's wild to think, because usually with these series we compare them to each other. This one is like, I think we can compare all the future ones pretty easily with each other, and like to our own subjective opinion. Yeah. But this one, to like say this is better or worse than these other ones, is a lot harder.
Yeah, it is. I will say it's interesting that this is the direction they chose to go with, right? Because Mario was always a point A to point B. That's what you do.
Yeah,
that's how you do, and
that's wild.
And that's a degree. That's I think what they tried to replicate with the get to the top of the stage. it's get from the beginning of the level to the end of the level. Like that's the conceit behind that. So I can see the continuity that they're trying to do that there, but then they're like, but then we got all these other ideas, puzzles that you got to solve, platforming problems that you have to resolve, collecting things in the world that you have to figure out. They had so many ideas already from this.
But what a time! It's like to even wrap your head around the fact they went from like Super Mario Bros., Super Mario World to this. It's like a completely different world. This is not even like there's barely any similarities in gameplay, like purely.
And yet they were able to. You're jumping around.
And yet they were able to stick the landing so well that like now 3D Marios are just as revered, if not more, than 2D Marios, which were so well established. It's crazy because even when I'm saying comparing this one to future ones, it's harder because like I love the 3D Mario games. There's like one maybe that I don't like. All the other ones I love to varying degrees.
Yeah.
So to say this one is probably one of my least favorite 3D Mario games is saying something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's interesting because like I think we have an understanding on this. I would say I don't dislike that Mario game, which we will get to eventually months down the line. But I definitely was like, yeah, that was okay. I played the game. I was like, this game was pretty fine. That was like my words about it.
Though we do have an interesting one that I also did not spend much time with. If we get into that one, which is Mario 64 DS, that's kind of a wild card.
We'll definitely want to review that because I've never played that game.
Really? Yeah, I've dabbled with it.
I think the only thing that I've done in that game, I won't want to say never because I think I played a kiosk at like Walmart, play like a demo of it. I think that I played like that. And the other thing I did was play the like mini games with a friend. Friend was like had a DS and let me borrow it. I played like the mini games with him. I was more interested in Metroid Prime Hunters, so
but that won't be interesting. So like that's a wild card. That one might also be on the bottom end of things. Yeah. So I have a feeling, but yeah. I mean,
but yeah,
it's. I love the 3D Mario games, so it's tough. Tough.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. One last thing I wanted to mention isn't like if you think about the world of Super Mario 64, isn't it just weird? Like what's going on here? You were in the castle. You're jumping in paintings. You're jumping into a clock. You're jumping into like weird rippling water. It's like trap doors. It's like so much shenanigans and magical shit happening. It's just wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of portals to different worlds. Seems to be the
different. What's going on here?
They all seemingly connected, like because they all know who Mario is, and so they're just portals to other parts of the kingdom.
But
I
it's
guess
inexplicable. Why are there some paintings to worlds and some you jump into water or you jump into a clock or you look up at a spot in the middle of the castle and it transports you magically? That's
some of it is Bowser's magic. I think like some of it was him because he's got the ultimate power
give
star.
It up for Bowser's magic at the end of the day, but
yeah, because Bowser has the power star, the big one, the big ultimate one that you get at the very end. So he has like so he's trapped all the rest of the little stars. He split them all up into little pieces and hidden them in all the different worlds.
All of the Bowser's magic in the world cannot really explain to me why when you stand on a spot in the castle and look up, it takes you to this magical cloud world where you can fly around. Yeah. I just don't really see why that's in his plans, but you do you, I guess.
I don't know. He's just having fun.
It's a wild world. The story is absolute shit in this game. I'll say that. It gives me nothing.
It's really. Nothing. It's nothing. It's just a framework. Mario wants to go get his cake at the castle. Whether or not that's a euphemism, I mean, it's not because we see it at the end credits. So it's legitimate cake. That's what he's getting. And yeah, I mean, it's just like Mario's got to save the day,
And that shitty text that really does not look good whatsoever. Yeah. The
Yeah, I
N64
baked the cake.
running text, like it's just so ugly. Like
Yeah.
the aesthetic is horrible. Like what were they thinking? But
Are we talking about the
just
text
like,
on her note,
well,
or
that, but just the text in general in this game, you know, it's like shitty.
really?
Yeah,
I don't see. That's the thing. That's the reason that I wanted to play the original version, because I think the text
because it's
looks
shitty.
great.
Oh.
No, it's really
It's like
not.
blurry,
I
like little, and
disagree.
it looks ugly. You scroll through it, and
It
it's just a
doesn't. It
block.
didn't look bad at all on the Switch version that I played. It did really not look bad. It looked good.
No,
I
I know the
I
truth.
think. I don't. I don't think it looked blurry at all. It looked blurry. I would say it looks blurry in the original note that she writes. I
Just
think it looks pretty bad there.
just the aesthetic doesn't work
But
for me. Of the text dialogue boxes, and I had no desire. Like I talked to some, the toads and whatnot, but there's just no desire to do that.
but that's what I mean. That's the aesthetic of the text looked bad on the 3D World version. Like that's why I didn't play that version, because that bothered me. I like the way the original game looks because it's pixelated. Pixel fonts in 3D games, I'm not usually like overly a stickler for it. For that game, because it's still in a kind of a janky, very polygonal era, I wanted a text font. I wanted a pixelated font, and I'm glad I went back and played it because I got that. So I got that with the N64 version. So
And what do you rate the
yeah.
graphics out of 10?
How do you even do that?
It just
I mean,
ages like fine wine. It's the
too,
best
because
looking
like
3D game I've ever seen.
it's because it's weird too, because like we're also in an era where like people are really really nostalgic for this aesthetic now.
Right, right.
Like people are starting to become like even more
I
now
guess.
for like it was funny. I found this is sort of an aside, but it's related, because I saw like a YouTube short or something where it was like, or even maybe it would just been an aside in a YouTube video I was watching, where it was like people are really nostalgic for this like 2000s to 2007 aesthetic and things, and I was like, yeah, because all the people that grew up in those year grew up. Of course, they're nostalgic for it. It happens to literally everybody, you weirdo.
Ooh.
If you talk to a millennial, everyone's nostalgic for the 90s.
I will say this
for a reason.
specific graphical aesthetic,
Yeah.
this specific time period
Yeah.
is like the most dated. Like, I think,
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
graphic wise, like that's why like the 2D,
Yeah.
HD 2D style like works so well,
Yeah.
because that ages well. This one specifically is like stuck in this time where it's like, it's not pretty, it's really not. But obviously I'm not going to critique
I don't
it.
know. I've seen a lot of games that use sort of the PS1 and 64 aesthetic, like that really make it work pretty well. Pseudo Regalia is a 3D platformer action game that I think uses it pretty well. It came out last year. There's been like some other games here and there that I just can't remember off the top of my head that have sort of used this kind of aesthetic that, I don't know. It is intentionally replicating a style, right? So there is a degree of it that's intentionally jank, I would say, in that regard. But yeah, I mean, it's like by modern means, of course. Yeah, it's just like it's not great. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's the best they could do at the time, sort of.
Yeah,
And
well, that's what
they
I
made it
mean
work.
by like, it's ahead of its time, but also stuck in its time.
It's very stuck in the past, for sure,
All
in
right.
that way.
Anything else on Mario 64?
I'm just trying to think. I think we've mentioned most of the worlds. Cool mountain. I remember thinking Snowman's Land was such a fun one to find, because it sort of required you to, because you enter basically an empty room, and it required you to. It's one of the
mirror.
few places in the whole game where you see Lakitu physically, which I think is fun, and it's fun because you have to use the environment to discover where it is. You have to actually use the mirror as a mirror, and I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
I also think all the stars in that world are really that is the one that feels the most like they packed in so much in such a small area. They packed it all in like perfectly. It's like boom, star right here, star right here, star right here. It's nice, compact.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like when it goes ba 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 ba. I like that little.
Let's go.
Like they have fun little, just little
Yeah.
sound bites like that. They're charming too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right.
How about playing with Mario's face on the title screen? Did you do any of
How
that?
about that? Yeah, that's classic. That's
actually
what I
threw up some Mario Party the other day. I just like I put it on because
put
I
that
was like
back
I was
in.
feeling nostalgic. Yeah, I know.
Blah.
I felt nostalgic. Mario Party. Because it was just like what the hell? It's on this service. I'll play the original Mario Party for kicks. But that game rough. But I like the fact that
I want to do that.
I like the fact that
I want to play all the Mario parties. I've been in the mood to play all the Mario parties and all the Mario sports games for some reason. I'm on a big Mario kick.
But one of the things that I found really funny was, that they basically made that face moving thing into a mini game in that. It's in Mario Mario Party 2 as well. It's implemented way better in that one because it's a battle mini game.
Right.
So that it grades you based on like how
well
close you are to the messed up face. But I thought it was really funny how they made that they made that into a mini game.
It's iconic. Yeah. A little weird.
So,
but we fuck with weird.
Anyway,
like why are we fucking with Mario's face?
I think that about covers it. Any thoughts on the Bowser worlds at all?
Love the music. It's badass.
Oh, music's amazing. Music's amazing. Yeah.
It actually was kind of annoying me spinning that fat fuck around. I'm not used to it. I just kept fucking it up over and over.
Yeah. I messed it up a lot in the last one, yeah. But
in the ass. But I do actually really like that because that's just like pure platforming goodness. I do like this.
Yeah, well, I think those do a really good job of trying to like replicate the 2D Mario style in the 3D space. Because especially because most of the time the camera is gonna benefit you the most by running it like that. Which is fun. I also think that they're compared to TikTok Clock and Rainbow Ride, which I've already expressed my frustrations with. I think those do a better job of testing your platforming skill in a more fair feeling way than those two stages do. I think the Bowser stages are especially because they work in intermediates. I think like the first one's gonna test your skills, but it's pretty simple to figure out. Second one, it's going to add the wrinkles. You've got lava here. You've had to deal with that before, but you're going to have to make sure that you're avoiding stuff and platforming well around it. And then the last one is like empty pits, just like the first stage again, but you got way more enemies and way more like there's more difficulty in terms of what you have to manage with the platforming. So
yeah.
Yeah. I like they crafted good. Each world and each floor, from the main floor to the basement, there's a difficulty spike in all those worlds, and then the second floor difficulty spike in all those worlds. There's a lot more puzzles, I would say, and weird stuff that happens on the second floor, and then third floor is like the ultimate test of your platforming skills. So I like how they crafted that too. I think that they did a really good job with all that.
That's why people point to the camera so much, is because like they have all the tools for great platforming, and it's just like if you could just do that perfectly, unrestricted, and like feel good about your where you are spatially at all times, then you would have like it would be even more excellent. So,
running into invisible walls, that's fun. It's great.
All right, are we ready for the final scores?
I think so.
3, 2, 1. Flip. 8.5.
Ooh, you went up.
Yeah.
Interesting.
8.5 and 8. It's a Tarqaron score, 8.25.
It's interesting you went up and I stayed the same. I stayed planted, set in my ways.
As
I
I've
think 8 is still really is a fair way to justify it. I think its technical limitations are the thing that hold it back. Um, it's almost unfair to hold that against it, but I mean it just is what it is at this point, you know.
it's just as I was talking through, amazing music, how it revolutionized so many things, the amazing movement options, and just the little things holding it up. It's not going to be my favorite 3D Mario game ever, like, because there's so many ones that like are perfectly polished and are masterful in other ways. But it's like I feel like 8.5 is more how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Especially for a lot of N64 games at the time are incredibly hard to go back to, and they're really rough to play now. And this one, you can just go right in, and it still feels really good. And it's just like, oh, we have these things,
yeah.
visually, obviously, and then you have these little technical things like the camera that are like, okay, I know I'm playing an older game, but I can get right in there. Whereas some N64 games are really, you can't. It's just hard to even touch them now.
Well, I also think it's interesting. They did a really good job of. This is a thing that I forgot to mention earlier, but it's a thing that really does stand out a lot. Is they made so much of the world. They made Mario stand out on every stage, and by that I mean like the color palettes were done so perfectly that the character models of bold colors, bright red, bright blue, nice solid colors are what you're going to be looking at most of the time, and it's contrasted to all the wacky weird. We have this huge color palette now available to the developers on the Nintendo 64. You have the huge swaths of colors that you can use as opposed to the older options that you had. And yeah, I think it was really smart of them to just keep restrained in terms of some of the visual design. In terms of like we knew we had the strong character profile is going to stand out to people when they're playing the game. So it's fun. You can always tell where he is. You can always pick out where he is, and that's why it's fun to move around the world because you can.
Yeah.
It doesn't get muddied in that sort of communication to the player. So
that's true. I mean,
pretty great.
I'll be honest, I'm not exactly eager to 100% this game because there's just some of these stars that were really annoying and frustrating to me. I'm like,
I would recommend don't do it. I mean, like if you're really inclined to, like me, like it was I think when I was a kid, I think I had 117 stars. I think it was 100 coin stars, I believe, on Rainbow Ride, TikTok Clock, and I want to say it was on Shifting Sandland. That's the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't really like Shifting Sandland all that much. I like the stuff in the pyramid a lot more than anything out in the open area.
Me too.
And I think it's just because the death traps, I hate them.
Yeah.
I think they're so easy. They're so easy to just accidentally walk into.
That's true. I like some elements of it. Yeah. The way you can use the wing cap and go to certain spots and those towers.
That's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, so I wasn't eager to because there were some that were just genuinely frustrating and annoying to me.
Yeah.
And there were some worlds I was happy to not spend too much time in if I didn't need to. That's why I was appreciating the freedom and not having to do it all. But
you don't need to go back in 100. You don't need 100 coin TikTok Clock.
But I'm judging it based judging it based on what it took to finish it, which is generally how I try to judge these games. There's a satisfying amount of challenge in there, no matter how you slice it, and you still experience like the large majority of what the game has to offer, and minus like super frustrating moments. So, yeah. So there you go, 8.25 for the first 3D Mario game ever.
Yeah,
and on our series.
Yeah, well, next one we have on the dock is the one I've played most recently,
most recently.
And yeah, and I can tell you right now, having already done the 120 shine sprite challenge, I'm not doing that ever again. I don't think I'm definitely not doing it again this time. I'll tell you that right now.
Just for the blue coins, you mean? Yeah.
They're so horrible. Yeah.
So make sure you save and continue.
I'm definitely not doing that.
But so Mario Sunshine is interestingly the most nostalgic for me because it's the one that I spent the most time early on, and I do have a lot of fond feelings in that way.
Yeah.
And I just love the vibe of Mario Sunshine, but it's been a few years since I've really dived into it, so it'll be good to do. I'm well aware of the many flaws that it has, and it'll be interesting to really see playing through it now just how much like they'll weigh it down or not for me, because I think fondly of that game, so we'll see.
That freaking Rico Harbor theme, man. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that. But so we'll get into all of that in a couple of months. So next month we're going to be
it'll be a couple months though, folks.
Next month we're gonna do a horror game, so look out for that. But then we'll be back to it. We'll be hawk to it, and it'll be Mario Sunshine, and then I believe
we're not spitting on no thing.
Well, the blooper will though, that's for sure.
Oh, jeez.
Then after Mario Sunshine, it will be Mario 64 DS. So we'll be back for our friend, and we'll talk about him again.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird to think about that wasn't even like 10 years old and they released it on the DS.
Yeah.
And that's the third 3D Mario game that's ever been released.
And the beautiful
that weird?
DS graphics. You know.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Is that'll be interesting with the different characters in the mix.
Yeah.
And
yeah. For sure.
Extra stars and all these shenanigans. I don't know.
Yeah, there's 150 stars, I think. I don't know if I'll go for all those either.
Yeah. I don't know how many you need to finish the game, if it's the same amount or not. But I don't know if I'm ready for that. You know, I don't know if I'm built for.
Yeah, well, we got a few months away to wait for that at least. So
there's so many in store. It'll be almost like a year-long venture, practically. You know, so many different 3D Marios. It'll be fun to revisit. Maybe.
Well, thanks for sticking.
Well, by then there'll probably be another 3D Mario, right? By the time we're through all those.
If they launch Switch 2 with one, I'll probably be playing that day one. So we'll see. Yeah. It'd be weird if they don't, because there hasn't been a new 3D Mario since Odyssey, which is, unless you count you could count Bowser's Fury, I think, but it's because we're going to.
Yeah.
But it is a little odd that there hasn't really been like a brand new Mario 3D platformer since Odyssey. That was 7 years ago now. So.
But this will be fun because we've never really had. We've always struggled with our game reviews and having enough time to do them. But I think games like this, you give us a month to do it. Especially, you know, they're ones we're mostly familiar with anyway. Yeah. So reinforcing that with another playthrough and whatever pace we want throughout the month is good. And I could definitely see us being able to do other games like that. It's just, you know, maybe not be able to do RPG series, you know? And it's just, we might have to stick to these more shorter games if we want to review more like that. But I mean, if it, like I've been, like I was saying, I've been in a kick for like Mario sports games, Mario party games. If they were more easily accessible, I would say that would be a fun series to do also. But like Mario Party would be just a pain in the ass if you don't have all of them.
Yeah, because the GameCube ones are going to start getting expensive. They're already kind of expensive. Yeah.
I'm lucky to have the GameCube ones, and then I have access to at least all the other ones, and then so it's just except for the handheld ones, I don't have those. But anyway,
Mario Party Advance, what a classic!
Yeah. All right.
So
Thank you for watching and joining us. This is a Super Mario 64 deep dive, baby.
Yeah.
If you
Thanks for
enjoyed
sticking
this
with us
video,
and get nostalgic.
yeah. If you enjoyed this video, why don't you go check out our review of Until Dawn. Check out our review of Until Dawn because we might be reviewing something
I couldn't think of a
similar
game that's
soon.
more different. Can't think of a game that's more different than this. Yeah, we might be. We might be removing something very, very soon. In fact,
very similar. Very, very soon.
Very similar. Very much the same. Yeah.
It's Until Dawn again. We're reviewing Until Dawn again.
Yeah. We're reviewing the remake that's coming up.
Until Dawn remastered.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, look forward to that, and we got spooky stuff on the way. This next month, we're in it now. A week from now, we'll be getting into the spooky shit. So, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, let us know your thoughts below, and take care of yourself. Ta-ra.